del audio, de dónde lo están tomando.
Nosotros lo estamos tomando directamente del Zoom y sí hay un delay pequeño, pero pues obviamente ya lo hemos hecho así, no creo que tengan inconveniente acá.
No, pero es un delay que se da entre la voz de ella y la boca, o sea, ¿es un lip sync, una falta de lip sync o es un delay en la señal? Porque el delay en la señal estaría bien, no importa, pero si pudiésemos tratar de que no haya el delay entre lo que ella habla y lo que se escucha.
No, es de la señal, es más de la señal. El
Okay.
lip
¿Cómo lo
sync
vemos?
y todo está bien.
Perfecto. Héctor, ¿y ustedes lo ven bien? ¿O lo
Sí
veo
lo
yo?
vemos bien. Si quieres arrancamos un ensayito
Por favor.
y vamos mirando. ¿Listo? Entonces digamos que...
No, pero Giovanni, quisiéramos hacer el ensayo desde nuestra parte, desde antes de entregarles el control.
Perfecto, sí. De que la cortilla que tú me das con el conteo, ¿verdad?
Sí.
So we're making an English test. This is the testing of the English channel, testing the streaming here. So if we start the rehearsal, we'll get going.
Pero ahorita estamos viendo una cortinilla de Colombia.
Genera más contraste esto, así, sin la chaqueta. Va a ser mejor.
Héctor. Hola, hola. Sí. ¿Podemos hablar? Pero, ¿cuál va a ser la señal de prueba que vamos a hacer? O sea, el rundown que queremos hacer, ¿dónde lo vamos a ver? Pero es que vamos a empezar ahora la prueba completa desde nuestra agenda, desde el video de agenda animada, para hacer la entrega de la señal y hacer todo. Bueno, hagamos esa entrega que es la crítica. O vamos desde el conteo.
Si quieres, yo te recibo desde el conteo.
Perfecto, hagamos el conteo. Okay, ahí viene.
Ahí está el conteo. Rueda cabezote.
Entonces ahora ya tienen el micrófono.
Digital de nuestras economías y acelerar la transformación digital de nuestros gobiernos. También
Ahí,
es fundamental.
Disculpe, vamos a hacerlo nuevamente. ¿Listo? Tranquilo.
Gracias, doctor. Muchas gracias, doctor Carranza, por sus palabras. Señoras y señores, se dirige... Señor presidente de la República.
Disculpe, vamos a iniciar nuevamente.
En este momento, pero a ustedes...
Si quieres, me rueda nuevamente el counter.
Vamos desde el segundo 10.
Ellos tienen el counter. Cuando diga 0, usted me avisa.
Desde el segundo 10, por favor, Héctor.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Ante la crisis.
Faced with the COVID crisis, it is more necessary than ever to strengthen digital resilience and accelerate digital transformation of governments. The digital gap has to be bridged in our societies. We need to protect data privacy. The large amount of data available in artificial intelligence and providing better services. The GovTech ecosystem is a partnership. No, pero el video se está escuchando demasiado bajo y hay alguien hablándole arriba.
No, es la chica que está practicando la MC.
Bueno, el audio del video está demasiado bajo y se me están metiendo muchas cosas. No se está pudiendo hacer práctica así, ¿eh?
No, está muy bajo.
CAF, Banco de Desarrollo de América Latina, y el Gobierno de la República de Colombia presenta
Podrán
gran
participar
aceleración digital en
respondiendo
América
a
Latina.
una pregunta a la
¿Cómo poner el
siguiente
Estado en modo startup
a la
para la
siguiente
recuperación?
Yo te escucho, Héctor.
el código QR.
Preparada, Tatiana. Sí, 2, 1, habla Tatiana.
Muy buenos.
Good morning, everyone in Latin America, and good afternoon for everyone following from Europe. On behalf of CAF, the Development Bank of Latin America, and on behalf of the Presidency,
Un poquito, no vemos lo que está pasando. Es otra imagen, lo vemos nosotros.
Estamos hablando de eso, también recordarles que pueden participar. ¿Qué pongo? No, está bien.
Quizás sea necesario, Tatiana, que hables un poco más para que agarren el nivel del audio, o corrígeme.
Ustedes me dicen. Permítame.
Listo. No sé si le robamos el video para que miren el volumen de... Dale, rueda la cortinilla y el video. Vamos a robarte cortinilla y video nuevamente.
¿Y
Esos
yo
son nuestros niveles.
empiezo a hablar? ¿O?
Eso lo tiene, exacto. Eso lo tendría que hacer el equipo de la, ¿verdad?
Por favor, ¿cuál tecla es para sacar Zoom? Por favor.
Están viendo vía streaming, podrán participar en este evento respondiendo a la siguiente pregunta y pueden hacerlo escaneando el código
Ahí está de nuevo,
QR
ahí
en
está.
sus pantallas. La pregunta es, ¿cuál podría ser el principal impacto negativo de la inteligencia? ¿Cuál podría ser el principal impacto negativo de la inteligencia artificial en los próximos años? Pérdida de plazas de empleo, invasión de la privacidad, dilemas éticos en la toma de decisiones o el uso indebido de la data para fines políticos, caos social o desinformación, las fake news o el deepfakes o los deepfakes. Esta pregunta estará disponible durante los próximos 30 minutos, pero los invitamos a responder ahora mismo desde ya.
¿Están viendo créditos ahí?
Pero los invitamos a responder desde ya.
Sí.
Con el código QR. Ahora queremos presentarles
Listo, tienen la barrita, ven la barra.
Sí, el zócalo se ve.
Ok, listo. Gracias.
¿Podemos revisar un momento el del presidente Carranza? Correcto. De acuerdo. ¿Y tienen uno de redes? Excelente.
¿Listo?
Listo.
Ahí estamos.
Sí, por la parte de los zócalos estamos.
Bueno, ahí Fernando se movió, pero supongo que sí, ¿no?
Acá estamos saliendo al inglés, probando canal inglés del streaming. Este es el canal de inglés de streaming. Tenemos en pantalla un señor uniformado, transformación digital del Estado en Iberoamérica, post-COVID-19. Cómo poner al Estado en modo startup. Estamos probando, sé que están haciendo la prueba de la traducción, así que este es el canal inglés. Claro, el nombre está equivocado, parece en el zócalo. Si se puede corregir, por favor.
Escaleta, esa es otra.
¿Qué es una escaleta?
Creo que es el script. Por lo que entendí ayer. Por lo que decían ayer era el script. El guión, pero es el script para nosotros en inglés, que es lo que tiene que
El
escribir.
continuity, claro.
¿Cómo se llama eso?
En inglés el continuity. No, pero es la pauta. No, la continuidad.
¿No es el guión?
El guión es. Sí,
El
es el guión.
Eh,
Bottom line guión. Perdón, no sé, cierro acá. Si hace falta me avisan.
Vemos solo las partes, o sea, las transiciones entre Tatiana y los videos. Está rodando agenda. Pero bueno, esta no está importante porque esta va antes del conteo y luego entregamos a presidencia. Entonces, vamos por favor a la línea, después de que entrega presidencia, a la línea 12, donde retoma Tatiana y dice, permítanme recordarles que pueden compartir sus opiniones, porque aquí tenemos que probar cómo se ve la
Probando en el canal inglés. Estamos probando, sí, en el canal inglés. Estamos probando canal inglés. Me avisan si quieren que pase al canal español, pero supongo que todo va al inglés, así que...
No,
Es-
hay uno.
ok.
Uno que habla en inglés.
Bueno, estamos atentas para cambiar español. Modúlenme bien la voz, que quiero salir bien. ¿Me escuchan bien? Vamos a probar el micrófono de la colega, que está paveando. Ahí va, le toca a ella.
Probando. Probando, dice, bueno, probando el canal de inglés. Into English. Probando el otro micrófono, el canal inglés. Warren Smith es el que habla en inglés. So, podemos empezar. Probando el canal de inglés en el streaming, desde la cabina de streaming. Canal de inglés, probando. ¿Estamos?
¿Podemos ir con Tatiana hasta eso, hasta que se abra la señal? O sea, no vamos a abrir todavía la señal. Listo, Tatiana.
Probando, sí.
Exacto.
¿Qué pasa con la distancia? ¿Acá me tengo que quedar?
Claro, y que si vos estás ahí, yo no puedo estar acá. Porque
Ok.
cuando hacemos el cambio, hacemos un desastre.
Ok.
Entonces,
No, yo para hablar siempre me vengo para adelante. Si tuviéramos...
nunca me relajo, me tiro acá, ¿no?
No, si tengo cosas, sí. Si tengo headsets por ahí, sí.
¿Sí?
Y porque sí, me miro. Bueno, you can participate through our social networks with the Digital Acceleration hashtag, and you can follow in our ads Agenda CAF in the social networks. And if you are following us through streaming, you can participate in the event by answering the next question and scanning the QR code. And the question is, which would be the main negative impact of artificial intelligence in the next years? The loss of jobs, the invasion of privacy, and ethical issues in decision making, or the appropriate use of data, or fake news or deepfakes. This question will be available for the next 30 minutes for you to answer. Please, we want to show you a brief video that poses interesting questions for the next panel. But there are examples that generate optimism. Artificial intelligence can be key to formulate better public policies, to render better services to citizens, and to be more efficient. What we must do to take... Ya lo sé, ayer lo vi también. At the same time, how to build trust. Y el tema es que los videos solo están en español. Y ellos ayer establecieron que salían en los 3 idiomas los videos. Por eso practiqué el otro 4 veces porque tenían que salir en portugués, en inglés y en español los videos.
El siguiente panel que moderará
¿Vida o no? Ya.
artificial para acelerar la transformación digital del Estado. Adelante, María Isabel.
Hola, estoy yo, cogiendo de María Isabel. Y ahora
¿Sí
pasa.
necesitan que yo hable?
No, no te preocupes, María Isabel, estamos haciendo la...
Ya.
Tranquila. Luego sí, luego te toca la de verdad. Ahora estamos todavía probando, vamos al panel de 4 y volvemos a Tatiana.
Agradecemos a Víctor Muñoz, a Juan Antonio Guridi, a la diputada Forteza y a María Isabel Mejía por habernos acompañado en este primer panel. El uso de datos y de la inteligencia.
Seguimos probando el canal inglés, testing. The English channel. Seguimos probando el canal de inglés, del streaming, salida en inglés. Seguimos probando el streaming en English. Canal de inglés, probando streaming. Que sigamos traduciendo, a que traduzcamos directamente, que nos ponemos a traducir. Okay. So we'll show a 7-second video that will give us time to make all the changes that we need to do. So let's start again. How to set the use of data and artificial intelligence is key to accelerate the digital transformation of a state, as we've seen in our first panel. However, it brings about very important regulatory challenges to guarantee its proper use. This also brings about a change in the way services are rendered and provided by public administrations, and in a way we need to think about the relationship with citizens, but for that it is also necessary to change the way in which we work. In this second panel we will discuss which are the promises of GovTech to set states in startup mode. But before starting, we have a new question. If you are following us through streaming, you can participate by answering this second question. You can scan the QR code that you can see in your screen. And the question is, which is the main challenge to enhance the GovTech ecosystem in your countries, to improve regulatory frameworks, more of official training, more public investment and private investment, and to improve the startup ecosystems. I will remind you that you have 30 minutes to answer the question, but we recommend you to answer it now. And now we would show an introduction video that would pose some of the main questions to be discussed in our second panel. According to the GovTech 2020 Index from CAF, the most digitalized countries are better positioned to take advantage of GovTech ecosystems. Entrepreneurship environments. Yo perdí acá perdimos el audio. En el canal de stream en inglés, en la cabina de inglés del streaming no tenemos audio. No nos llega el audio.
No tenemos audio. No.
¿Nadie?
¿Nadie?
¿Tienen audio ustedes? No. Ok.
No.
Hola, soy Enrique, estoy hablando en...
Ya, ahora sí. Hello, I'm Enrique. I'm at the full screen now. We are testing now. We go now to 5 windows in the screen. One of the panel members are going to come later. Then let's go once again to full screen and then 4 windows. And then we come back to Tatiana.
A Enrique Zapata, a Francesca Bría, a Ignacio Gaitán, a Leticia Smith por habernos acompañado en este segundo panel. En nombre de CAF, Banco de Desarrollo de América Latina y de la Presidencia de la República de Colombia, les agradezco a los invitados que nos acompañaron durante esta transmisión. Esta transmisión se encuentra desde ya disponible si quieren volver a ver.
So that broadcast is already available in the CAF YouTube account. We thank our media partner NTN24 and Europartis, the European Press Agency, and we would like to thank you, that all of you that have been following us from your computers and your mobile devices. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Partners, y muchas gracias.
Ante la crisis del COVID.
Given the COVID-19 crisis, it is necessary to strengthen the digital resilience of our societies and to accelerate the digital transformation of the government. It's also essential to bridge the digital divide in our societies and protect our digital privacy. The great amount of data available are artificial intelligence would enable states to provide better services to the citizens. The GovTech are understood and PPP that can be used to make this come true. We are at a crossroads where the good governance of data will determine our digital future, which is the role of artificial intelligence in the digital transformation of the state, how GovTech startups can contribute to the transformation of state. CAF, the Development Bank of Latin America, and the government of the Republic of Colombia present the great digital acceleration in Latin America, how to set the state in the startup mode for recovery.
Muy buenos días.
Good morning, Latin America. Good afternoon, Europe. I am Tatiana Benza, and on behalf of CAF, the Development Bank of Latin America, and the Presidency of the Colombian Republic, it's my pleasure to welcome you to this seminar, The Great Digital Acceleration in Latin America, How to Set the State in Startup Mode for Recovery. So greetings to everyone following via streaming on the website of the Presidency of the Republic and CAF and on social media. This activity we're holding today virtually from Colombia is framed within the 50-year anniversary of CAF, the Development Bank of Latin America. We have great speakers from Colombia, Latin America, and from Europe to reflect on the strategic use of data and artificial intelligence to promote the state digital transformation. The COVID-19 crisis has underscored the urgency to strengthen digital resilience of our economies and has accelerated considerably digital transformation amongst governments. All this digital transformation also sets new challenges. Through this session, we want to encourage dialogue in between different stakeholders in the digital ecosystem to promote digital acceleration amongst states in the new context, the result of the COVID-19 crisis in Colombia and Latin America. You're all invited to share your thoughts and insights with the hashtag Digital Acceleration and to follow us at Agenda CAF in Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thanks to our media partners, El Tiempo from Colombia, NTV 24, and the Europe Press News Agency. And now we get started with the opening words from the La Casa Nariño, the words of Luis Carranza Ugarte, Executive President of CAF. Good morning, America. Good afternoon, Europe. President Iván Duque, thank you so much for joining us in the opening of such an important seminar on digital acceleration in Latin America. The pandemic has underscored the importance of states in bringing about digital transformation for themselves. It shows the unusual power of citizens, and it has reached our societies. The future is here, and we have to react, not only to recover, but to set forth in an inclusive and prosperous development future. So CAF has taken on a digital agenda with an ambitious vision of digitalization of SMEs, microfinancial companies, and production chains. Moreover, we want to bridge the digital divide, especially in terms of rural infrastructure. Evidently, the digital transformation of the state must be done. Dear Mr. President, congratulations to Colombia. It's become a regional leader in the state digital transformation. You're on the way of becoming the Silicon Valley of Latin America. Congratulations. OECD has recognized it in the current index of digital government for 2020. It's placed Colombia in the 3rd place amongst OECD countries. That's a great achievement. Congratulations. CAF started on a digital transformation agenda by focusing on the use of AI and data to improve public policies, to promote regulatory reform and improvement in administration. We want to promote transparency in public management, to support municipalities to become smart cities. But it's not just that. We've made progress in supporting GovTech ventures, which in association with governments, they propose innovative technical solutions to resolve our citizens' issues. Just to give you some examples, here in Colombia, we have worked with the ICT's ministries in a process to adapt and simplify databases. Results have been wonderful. 30% profitability of the investment. In Guadalajara, Mexico, work has been done to digitalize the public records. And so tax collection has increased. So there are plenty of examples like this, and we trust Colombia will continue its leadership to take advantage of the momentous. The GovTech accelerator at regional level is working well. So, dear Mr. President, thank you so much and congratulations to Colombia for the great effort to transform the state. Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Dr. Carranza, for your kind words. Ladies and gentlemen, and now the President of the Republic of Colombia, Dr. Iván Duque Márquez, will address us. Good morning. Good morning. Greetings to my dear friend Luis Carranza Ugarte, President of CAF, Development Bank of Latin America. Greetings to José Manuel Restrepo, Ministry of Trade, Industry and Commerce, Victor Muñoz, Advisor on Digital Transformation and Economic Affairs, Maria Carolina España from CAF in Colombia. Greetings to all states, stakeholders, members of CAF. My greetings to all digital government agencies joining us today. And my greetings go to Dr. Paula Fordres, co-president of the Parliamentarian Group of Ecology, Democracy and Solidarity for the French residing in the French Caribbean. Greetings to José Uribe, Maria Isabel Mejia, and to the entire CAF team. Luis, we meet today with great pleasure to discuss the digital transformation of Latin America, and we're pleased to see that CAF plays a leading role still to discuss innovation, and this allows us to move forward to better public policies. When our administration started 27 months ago, we clearly stated that we have a true north in our horizon. We want to accelerate government digital transformation, but always being centered on the citizen. That's why we set some goals, aspirational goals. We said we want Colombia to become the digital valley of Latin America. We want to be an attractive technological place for investments to come. We want to attract investments on technology. We want Colombia to be part of the fourth industrial revolution with the Internet of Things, AI, robotics, cloud computing, and cybersecurity, and the application of technology in different areas becomes more and more dynamic with clear and concrete consequences. We have an advisory group on digital transformation, and in the last months, we are pleased to see that Colombia is recognized by OECD as the third country worldwide in terms of digital government progress. This is so because we have tools and decisions in place. Firstly, we have a public policy framework in place. It is within our development plan. From the first day of our administration, we said it. We want savings, efficiency, and to accelerate services to citizens with a positive impact on transparency and accountability. Secondly, we have forged an alliance with the World Economic Forum so that Colombia is the first Spanish-speaking country within that forum to set up a center for the fourth industrial revolution placed in the city of Medellin. We are making progress with public policies, as has been seen with the Compass document, a document issued by a national council related to the ICTs. It relates to artificial intelligence, and as we proposed, we want to show how digital transformation cuts across all citizen services. Thirdly, digital transformation goes hand in hand with entrepreneurship. After visiting Station F in France and being in Sofia, Cannes, and after visiting Silicon Valley and the Young Park, the technical district in London, we visited everyone. We learned from their experiences and created a park here for creative added value and technological added value. So we have now 5 centers throughout our country. We want to create 22 nodes where we have the public support and the financing for these entrepreneurship projects. And we have a fund of funds where public resources and resources coming from SoftBank, which leads in risk capital for technological development. That's an important step taken. But in addition, we want to link digital transformation with our own ambitions on improving efficiency. With the Ministry of Industry and Tourism, we have a program, Simple State, Agile Colombia. We have hundreds of processes that have been digitalized to make them user-friendly. And we have the support of tax reforms. Our decision has been to lower taxes to SMEs and for companies that are based on technology and on creativity. The income tax will be reduced for them for 7 years if they have a minimum number of jobs created and a minimum earning. And in addition, Colombia is at the focus of interest of international investors. So we're pleased to see Amazon Web Services in Colombia, a huge investment they made, placing Colombia with one of the best infrastructures of database data storage. We have a Microsoft in storage. We had Telefonica having an innovation lab. Accenture created a mini lab. And as we've recently seen, we have plenty of capital arriving to place their operational backup systems or administrative backup systems, which is the back working force providing tech services. All this is framed within a government agenda, has several pillars. First, GovTech. We are doing the digital transformation of our customs and tax revenue agency, improving in efficiency, improving collection to fight against tax evasion. We've reached record numbers on the number of companies who abide by the digital invoicing systems. It's enforcing databases with relational data. Another important point in GovTech about the mining records of countries. Through the Ana Minería system, we have accurate grids on a database where we identify environmental, social issues. We have accurate records to control. By updating records with the cadastry, we do a great leap to reach an 80% update of our records by 2022. So we work with the Agency of Public Records and the Geographic Institute, where we use comprehensive technology systems to do territorial mapping. Beyond that, we have a citizen folder program that enables many systems, digital system. We want to unify digital databases so that citizens have a single access point to all government transactions. And there are plenty of efforts being done to develop talent and develop human resources for the digital transformation. It's not just accompanying the GovTech vision, but getting the support of other sectors. We want to train by 2022 10,000 digital technicians. We focus on health tech, health and technology with telemedicine, online medical clinical history, and digital invoicing of medical services. And then the fintech, with the leadership of MIT, we have updated our legislation. We have a regulatory framework in laws to have a regulatory sandbox to enforce new policies. Colombia is number one in ranking of digital evolution. Within the framework of the pandemic, no doubt this will help us reach 80% of adults with financial products. Mobile banking and the digital wallet is a key element out of that. And connectivity is supported by all that. We've had tenders on high and low bands. The idea is to reach with high-speed internet by August 2022 to 70% of the country, creating rural connectivity points and urban points to enable connectivity. And we want to promote mobile connectivity as well. So all these efforts, and on top of that, you get the reforms on ICTs, and you add intersectorial work and the work we do to promote the scaffolding for fintech. And on that, you add cybersecurity. We have public policies on that associated to exponential expansion for e-trade. You know that the pandemic has made lots of changes in that field. Colombia wants to become the regional leader and consolidate its aspiration to be the Silicon Valley of Latin America. We have plenty of work still to do, but with the risk funds, these
sofisticado creciendo a 3 dígitos. Nosotros queremos que
we want Colombia to have strike balance, education, regulation, amplification, investment, and to be close to the large markets so that this takes us to our final destination. And once again, Dr. Luis Carranza, we are encouraged by the presence of CAF. We are encouraged by your presence here in Colombia. CAF, as a development bank for Latin America, has looked for technical cooperation and credit resources and has looked for resources to match the public sector to achieve success. Colombia is advancing with speed. In 26 months, Colombia has taken a quantum leap in terms of digital government greater than ever. This leap forward is done with the support of OECD and CAF, with the support of the private sector and large funds. It's been a tough year for the world, for Latin America, for Colombia too. The months of the pandemic have been of pain and discouragement in many places, but we have to be resilient, as Richard has said. We are accelerating history here.
Today we are seeing how in the middle of the pandemic, technology applied to education, technology applied to healthcare, technology applied to financial inclusion, technology applied to data visualization in the public management or administration, applied to citizens, and also the technology applied to the public administration to make things easier, enables Colombia to go on in the middle of the pandemic. So that's why I want to acknowledge all the participants in this meeting. Today we are going to listen to very important speeches and discussions, but you, Luis, have already said this as president of CAF. We want to transmit also the message that Colombia is going in the right track in order to turn into the Silicon Valley of Latin America.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, for your words. The President of Colombia and CAF Executive President will leave the meeting now, but please stay with us because we are going to continue with the rest of our meeting.
Estamos de regreso.
We are back, and I will remind you that you can share your opinions in the social networks with the hashtag Aceleración Digital, and you can follow our @AgendaCAF account in Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Before starting with the first panel in this event, if you are following us via streaming, you can participate in the event by answering the following question. You can do it by scanning the QR code that you are seeing in your screens. And the question is, which may be the main negative impact of artificial intelligence in the next years? The the answers will be the loss of jobs, invasion of privacy, ethical dilemma in decision making, and the improper use of data for political goals, social chaos of misinformation like fake news or deep fakes. These questions will be available for answers for the next 30 minutes, and now we will show you a brief video that would pose important questions to be discussed in the next panel. Latin American is relegated in its preparedness of their governments to take advantage of digital transformation, but there are new possibilities. Artificial intelligence can be key to formulate better public policies, render better services to the citizens, and be more efficient. What we should do to take advantage of the opportunities and at the same time to mitigate the risks of artificial intelligence. How to build trust and to place human beings in the center of this technological development.
Iniciaremos entonces
We will start this first panel by giving the floor to María Isabel Panes, a senior specialist in innovation from CAF, and she's going to be the moderator of the first session called the Strategic Use of Data and Artificial Intelligence to Accelerate the Digital Transformation of the State. María Isabel Mejía, you have the floor. Hello, Tatiana. Good morning, everybody. It's very good to have all of you here with us in the first panel. We are going to discuss artificial intelligence and how artificial intelligence help accelerate the digital transformation of the states. First of all, let's see about which are the different artificial intelligence policies of the different countries that are going to take part in this conversation, in this discussion, what are the main lines of actions and focuses. And also we want to talk about the main opportunities public administrations have in the use of artificial intelligence. But at the same time, we want to know what are the risks brought about by these new technologies and how we can have a responsible use of data and AI. And finally, we would like to know which will be the recommendations or lessons learned by the most advanced countries in the world or the leading countries in these issues, and also the lessons learned or things to do by the countries that are here in this discussion in order to inspire those countries that have not yet started in building their AI strategies. This panel, we have 4 panel members: Paola Forteza, the co-president of the Ecology, Democracy and Solidarity Parliamentary Group, and the French members of the parliament represented French citizens living in Latin America and the Caribbean. She is representing France today. Victor Munoz, the Presidential Counselor for Economic Matters and Digital Transformation from Colombia. He's leading the digital transformation in Colombia. And also we are going to have with us Jose Antonio Guridi, who's a leader in building AI strategy in Chile. So it seems that Victor has not yet get to his office because he was with the president, but I'm here. Yeah, he left where he were with the 2 presidents, but now he has reached his office. So let's start with Paula. Good morning, Paula, and welcome. So recently, the Government AI Readiness 2020, published by the Offer Index IDSC, was published in October this year. U.S. and Western Europe governments, according to this index, are those governments that are better prepared for AI. So I would like to ask you, why do you think that European countries or the U.S. are the best prepared for these? Which are the lines of actions or the main focuses on AI in European countries and governments? What's the role of the government in these? And can you tell us a little bit about the case of France or any other country in Europe you have information on? Thank you very much for this invitation. I would like to start by saying that I have listened to President Duque's words, and really I'm very impressed by the ambition of the country in these issues and the management of these issues and how competent they are. I would like to tell you a little bit about the situation in France. In France, we are ranked as the country number 11th as regards the possibility or the capacity to use in artificial intelligence. How we came to be in the 11th rank, it's because we have a political ambition and a strategy that was implemented in March 2018, designed by Cédric Delany, representative, a colleague of mine. I've been working with him for a long time. He's a mathematician. He has a Films Award. He is very well known all over the world. And he designed this strategy. There was a public funding for this strategy, 1.5 billion euros for launching this strategy. There are many interesting items to develop and to explain as regards the implementation of this strategy. What is interesting is that the AI policy is just data policy, because data are the ones that would be used to train the different models, algorithms, and AI. So the more data we have, or the more open data, the more free data or big data bases we have, better we will be able to develop our policy. So France had a very ambitious open data policy, and so it was easier for us to make progress as regards artificial intelligence. Some sectors in the country, such as healthcare, transport, have been managed centrally by the French state for many years. So this makes us have very huge databases to use to train our algorithms, especially in healthcare and transport. Also, as a positive note, we had developed a lot regarding ethics and preservation of personal information, personal data. France was a pioneer, has been at the forefront of these issues of privacy, data privacy. That's why we already had some elements available to be able to make quick progress as regards AI. This policy also has a very strategic view, a very strategic vision. The public policies was considered highly strategic as regards geopolitical issues and economic issues. So everything was designed by thinking about European sovereignty in this issue, both data access and research on AI. And since we already had this strategic vision, we could justify a very important public investment from the French government and from the European government. The European community has invested a lot in these issues. Of course, we have some hindrances in France and Europe to develop these policies, and this is related to access to funding and financing, certain rigid frameworks to move from research to industrial or startup development or actual product development, how to go from academic research into the actual product. This is something that is very well done in the US, Canada, UK, or China, but it is not so easy to do in France, to transfer capacities or technology or information from the academic environment to the industrial environment, especially about new technologies. I have been working on quantum computing project, and we've seen the same hindrances or same problems in France. That would be a first introduction. Then later on, I can give you some examples during the discussion. Thank you. Marvelous, Paula. Then you can tell us why an Argentinian is in France representing French citizens abroad, and the fact that we are speaking in Spanish. Okay, so now, Victor, the Colombian government implemented or passed the policy on digital transformation last year through the Compass 3975 document, and it has also been mentioned in the index published by Oxford Insight as regards the preparedness of countries for the digital transformation. Colombia has been singled out as the best country in Latin America as regards preparedness, but it's kind of the rising star together with Uruguay and Brazil. So, Victor, can you tell us why that digital transformation policies has a focus on AI? Which are the main lines of action, or which are the main items and points of the AI strategy? Can you share with us the main achievements or advances that has enabled Colombia to turn into the rising star in the Oxford Index? First of all, greetings everybody. First of all, we approach the digital transformation policy as a comprehensive policy. In the past, the government already had an open data policy that was essential for everything we are doing now. So the first thing is that we took a policy not just on AI, but a comprehensive policy that has 7 different elements: connectivity, innovation, cybersecurity, etc., and co-creation, and these enable us to have this comprehensive policy. Then, why emphasis on AI? And this is because AI is the technology that would enable disruptions and quantum leaps in other technologies. That's why after many discussions and conversations with the risk capital trust funds, we set AI as a priority for our country. And then we decided, made a decision to start working on that together with the World Economic Forum, as President said minutes ago in the opening. Because we were wanted to be prepared for the 4th industrial revolution, and we put the emphasis on blockchain, Internet of Things, and artificial intelligence. And which are the main lines of action? With this framework, we started creating not just our general policy, but also markets for AI. How can we manage and generate opportunities for the consolidation of the AI market, and then also disruptive innovations that can gather all those elements and components? And then we started a discussion on ethical framework and cybersecurity, and it's something we are working in now. So we are working with our partner in the development of technology and modernization of the government, and how we can discuss and treat the ethical framework, the responsible use of data, and how we can have a key role in terms of research and development by the academia or the educational sector. So we adopted an integral, a comprehensive approach for this digital transformation, so that in the future we can have quantum leaps in all of the remaining technologies. And the idea is to have a comprehensive approach of the different components. And also I would like to talk about intelligent regulation. We are taking advantage of the possibility of having regulatory sandbox, and we are about to launch the sandbox with the commerce and industry superintendents for use of data, consumers, and AI for the different sectors of the economy. And this is a very positive step that we have been taken as regards technology in the country.
Sí, a mí sí me parece que Colombia sí se...
Fantastic, Victor. I think that Colombia is at the forefront in putting emphasis on the responsible use of artificial intelligence by the public sector. And so this has made, as Canada, one of the leading countries in the world, has done, the emphasis on responsible use of this information, especially in the public administration. Now we will give the floor to José Antonio. José Antonio is leading in the Chilean government the building of public policy and AI. And as I see it, this is a highly participatory process, and I would like José Antonio to tell us a little bit about this building of public policy, who were the leaders, who were the players involved, the stakeholders, and which are the different lines of actions chosen to focus public policy, and when is it going to be ready, approximately. So first of all, thank you for the invitation to be part of this panel and share the experience of public policy in Chile. Well, we'll start with the last question, because we are just about to come out with our policy. We are in the drafting stage of the document. We will have a public consultation of that, and perhaps by the end of the year or the beginning of next year, we will be able to implement or launch that policy. This is has been a quite changing process, because we have to go through 2 years of a lot of contingencies, but it has been an opportunity to rethink the process and to improve it as we made progress. We started last year. First, it was led by the Ministry of Economy, because at the time the science minister was new, and so we didn't have the ministry created as such. So we started thinking about a national policy of artificial intelligence, and this went parallel with the process that started in the Senate as regards the need to have policy. So in July, the team moved to the science ministry that was growing, and so we submitted to the president in August the need to have this strategy in Chile. In 6 months, we analyzed all the different strategies and policies available at the time. And in Latin America, the only one at the time was the Mexican policy. And we also analyzed in the world how the different countries had different approaches. China has focused on development and research in technology, and Canada and France had an important ethical component that was not present in the other policies. So the president gave us the mandate to build this national policy in August that should have 2 components. On the one hand, to empower the country in the development and creation of AI, not just being importers of technology to take advantage of the benefits also, but be creators of the technologies, and also to empower citizens in the discussion of the impact of technology and how we can build the society of the future that is going to be living with this technology, understanding that AI is a general purpose technology.
The process started after several discussions We had an experts committee. It covered several ministries leading the process. And we had seminars on AI. Time after, by October, manifestations broke out in Chile. So we had to rethink the process. We changed the deadline. Originally, the deadline was April this year, but we decided to postpone until July, and we redesigned the process. The seminars that were forums or discussion opportunities were changed into workshops throughout our territory. And we did a trial, 2 seminars and 2 workshops. The workshops were more successful. And new stakeholders approached. They wanted to participate in drafting the act. There was people from civil society, companies. So we called on sessions where people, organizations could create working groups and contribute with the policy. This started in June because we want the policy to be as open as possible. We wanted to gather the concerns, the feelings of people towards technology. And based on that, we built our policy. We knew what the axis was of the act, and we put it up for discussion. We wanted to organize the conversation so it would be easier to process all the information. We had the enabling factors, so we identified what we need to develop AI. Human capital, training, specialization in universities. We need data. How can we have public data, usable, interoperable, and protected data, and infrastructure, connectivity, computing capabilities, etc. And then is to complement demand and offer, how to adjust the government and the private sector. And then we assessed the economic impact of these technologies. Then in March, the pandemic struck, so we had to plan a new schedule. So we reviewed our agenda. We just expanded the process, and participation increased with that. We designed a series of webinars for 2 months. Every Tuesday, we discussed artificial intelligence with different experts, from neurosciences to gender approach, and so many others. In this process, from March to August, 70 discussion tables were put together. We had the regional discussion boards, one for each region. Those were 69, 400 people participating. And in the webinars to date, we've had more than 6,000 people attending. Originally, 80 people attended, but it's still online and it's been viewed 6,000 times. We never expected such an outreach. We had a better public response and more participation than the gender approach agenda that the government opened for public consultation once. So this discussion process helped us learn, and it reached people who are not experts. It was a heterogeneous discussion, enriching certainly. And we're currently systematizing all the information gathered. We are preparing the first draft. It will be submitted to public consultation. People can review it once more, and we can open up participation one more time. There's so much I want to say, but I'm out of time, I know. Jose Antonio, thank you so much. That was wonderful. Now, a second question, and I want to hear the answer of everyone, starting from Victor. Victor, what do you think are the key opportunities of AI on public administration? Can you give us an example of what opportunities you believe AI provides? Before answering that question, I want to point out something that Jose also mentioned, the consultations. In Colombia, we also had public consultations. We received 800 comments. We had 100 centers participating in the development of the policy. That made building the policy easier. About your question on what opportunities AI brings, it just creates so many opportunities for development. It makes everything more efficient, but these are all benefits to the citizen. Everything that the policy does is meant to improve the life of citizens. That's always been citizen-centered. Let me give you an example of how we've been using it. We are working with the superintendents of societies with a model of artificial intelligence, and all models of analytics and consolidation of data for forecast models is something we already do use with artificial intelligence. During the COVID time, we have panels like the ones you see behind me it runs the traditional models, but we also run models that use artificial intelligence to forecast the next steps and trends within the pandemic. That way we know what sectors to open, what sectors to close, or if we can permit certain events. So it creates images as well with X-ray detectors. Hospitals, for example, we take measures and we do mapping. We've seen that done in Chile and China. So all the access points to the country are analyzed. You know, we have large ground borders in Colombia, and we start controlling those and mapping them. So we enable pilot tests, and we create projects that are executed, and those become a reality and contribute to our operational systems. In the agricultural sector, too, we've applied it using technologies like IoT, using data to make forecasts on seeding and such. It's used in health, education, agricultural and financial sectors. For preventive auditing, for example, by the superintendents, it can be used there too. It just makes everything more efficient based on the data we process. So these are some of the sectors and concrete examples. This we've been implementing it. Very interesting. These are projects and pilots. In Latin America, I know we many times do a pilot and that's it, but you're creating programs out of those pilots. Jose Antonio, can you give us an example of an opportunity? Well, I almost agree on everything with Victor, but I don't want to repeat. It just brings about efficiency in the state, you know? And that translates into improvement for citizen services. At the same time, from a punitive and punishing approach, you move to a preventive approach. You prevent. In many sectors, you improve opportunities in health, like telemedicine, which we see a lot now in times of the pandemic. Then there's also applications for the mining industry and agriculture, which are very important in my country. Now, As we develop the policy, some things are already implemented. These are existing projects where we are incorporating AI. The Social Development and Family Ministry is working on early detections to prevent school dropouts, for example. This project uses AI to trigger early warnings of potential school dropouts. And that way we have interventions activated. And it also works to prevent child abuse. We have taken principles of UNICEF incorporated in the work we are doing. We have also the Secretariat of Environment creating the smart environmental monitoring throughout the country. And based on that data, they wanted to be online data, and they use AI algorithms to intervene in industrial sectors before they breach any of our environmental laws and end up damaging the environment. It's preventive work, again, very useful. And in the Ministry of Economy, there are two great projects. We want to simplify tax regulations. So AI is used to assess all regulations to avoid duplicity, to eliminate acts that might be preventing investment. So it's applied to simplify tax legislation. And to support SMEs, we're using artificial intelligence too. And two more points I want to point out. We use AI to mitigate the impact of AI. Might sound interesting. This is how to help people make that leap they have to make because of the introduction of new technologies in the workforce. So the labor observatory platforms like LinkedIn and employment platforms identify where job opportunities arise. What are the areas that run a lower risk of automation? And it analyzes the skills of available workers and suggests what leaps they need to make to find employment. And it also matches them with the available educational resources of the state to identify the upscaling or upskilling, as it is called, for workers. We have several ministries in cooperation with the IADB working on that. And then we made data available as an enabler, but away from personal data, which is certainly more complex. For the last 2 years, the Ministry of Economy and the Ministry of Science work on the Beta Observatory. It's a private-public effort bringing Amazon and a Chilean university together. There was an open call and they came with the initial investment. This will also be open to many other players. It is a platform that will gather data. We have large volume of data. 70% of observation is found here, and that how can that be used for other industries to promote human capital and create value by bringing together different sectors? And we also will work on climate change detection. Chile has a large coastal border, so throughout it we'll study it. And because we are further south, we can gather satellite data faster than others. Satellites pass our territory faster than in other lands. So we'll use this platform observatory to gather data that is of global industry. We'll share that with the public sector, private sector. We want people to create algorithms to strengthen their systems. And that's aside from private data, which is more delicate, as you should understand.
Maravillosos de lo que
Fantastic, Jose Antonio. Thank you for your examples of what is going on in Latin America, Paula. Just tell us now, what are the opportunities you are seeing there, on some examples you can share with us from France. What we did in France, we put up together an experimental lab on the use of AI applied to public policies, public administration. That was one of the recommendations of the Cédric Milani strategy. So we had a call for projects, and we selected 21 projects that were funded. Some of them were more advanced than others. Some are more advanced, some are more an experiment, some have already been moved to scale production. I will give you some examples of how AI can be used in public administration or for public policies. We have many apps in healthcare. Because with COVID, of course, this has been emphasized, but one of the apps was for semantic treatment of files and documentation, patient files and documentations, in order to be able to find them more quickly and to speed up patient treatment. This was very useful in times of COVID. As regards security, we have a way to automate the identification of missing elements in a report, for example. And so it makes it easier to process all the files and the case solving. All these are elements and utilities that help us accelerate and automate some of the administrative processes that are quite heavy and bureaucratic in France and take a lot of time. As regards justice or the judiciary, we worked a lot with open data in the judiciary in order to be able to analyze case law, and this helps all people working in justice, so the judiciary, whether it's the judges, the assistants, the clerks. This has sped up the processing of all the documentation. Our focus was always the AI and digitalization at the service of the human being as a tool that can help us in our everyday practice, administration, life, but of course living with responsibility and the decision making in the hands of people, of the human administration. Not what we don't want to have is algorithm having free will to make decisions with sensitive or private information. I can give you a couple of examples, very interesting. One is related to weather. It's called Open Solar Map. This project was inspired by OpenStreetMap. You already know it, the very huge street database and street planning database that has been developed at world level. So Open Solar Map does recognition and identification of all the roofs that can be suitable for the installation of solar panels. And this is a crowdsourced database. Each one of us can enter data from our cell phones or mobiles, and this is useful to optimize the installation of the solar panels that, of course, are costly and requires a great investment. So through this mapping, we can have the best possibilities of installing these panels. Another example would be in social assistance. A voice bot is being developed to provide answers to the users of the public service, an automated answer system with some basic answers so far that would help people solve by themselves some of the issues they encounter on their daily lives. And discussing about digital inclusion, we have realized that many people found it easier just to make an oral question to an app that write that question or send emails or having a chat, talk or conversation. So these helped us reach other audiences that didn't do well with the writing interface, with the written interface. So we are now at an experimental stage with some prototypes, but there's a lot of investment, both human and financial resources for these developments. Fantastic, Paula. I would like to ask the production before going to the next question related with the risk. We would like to know what were the answers of our audience to the question of the negative or some of the negative impacts these new technologies may have. Can we have the results on the screen? Okay, let's see. I cannot see anything. I don't know if you can see it on the screen. If any of the panel members can just read the answers or the results, can you just tell me about them? I think that people following us in the webinar can already see, but these are the results of the questions. But loss of jobs, 22%, privacy invasion, 20%, ethical dilemmas, 17%, and the improper use of data, 41%. So now let's go to the risk issue now. I will try to be brief because we are running out of time. Some of the risk of the dilemmas posed by this new technology, I'm going to just give you a brief summary. Maybe transparency, privacy, applicability, the possibility of having biases that may come from ourselves. The different stages of AI, we can think about the impact of automation, and we could keep on discussing these. But a couple of important items I would like to stress here is legislations in general are quite slow, and that's a risk. The challenge is how from the governments and the strategy go at the same speed with our legislation as how we treat those risks and foster the use of AI, some self-regulation, things that can be applied, and how can we foster development in emerging countries or developing countries, because of course we don't have the same level of development as in Europe, the US, or China. And in this sense, we are working on good practice guidelines that have been already proven, not just because we think it will work, but because we have already tested them, and how we can streamline things through public purchase. For example, by doing public purchases, we can also incentivize the industry to start adopting and working on the new technologies. We have a pilot project by one of the universities in our country, and we are working with them together with the ministry in Chile on public purchase, so that tender biddings for public purchase would include consideration of the responsible use of the data. And we are going to have a pilot project in the next 2 years in order to generate good practices. And lastly, I would like to say that we should approach this at a regional level, and I'm going beyond our borders, because this before was just focused on Europe or the US, and what UNESCO has been discussing is that they have recognized this, that the emerging countries, Latin American, Asia, or Africa, kind of do not exist. And so we have different problems, we have different levels of developments that give us different technical capacities with different gaps. And so it is essential, I think, that we should start with this discussion regionally in order to start adopting standards as a region, things that we think are appropriate for our region. Really, I very much liked this call for Latin American countries to work together, and I think that CAF can play a key role in leading this group effort or regional effort. And I think that we have a lot to say in the building of these responsible use principles. And now I have the results here. People think that the main negative impact is the negative use of AI for political goals. 20% think about the loss of jobs because of automation. 20% think about invasion of privacy, and 17% ethical dilemma in decision making because of AI. So now, Paula, tell us which are the main risks that you can identify in the use of this technology, and can you give us some example of what is being discussed in Europe beyond some more clear risks or apparent risks? It's interesting to see that how in some uses that we think are good because they are used to approach certain serious issues, we can find certain details, the devil is in the small details, we say, and we could say some impact on liberties and freedoms or constitutional rights that are very important for the check and balances in the government. Some cases that brought about a lot of discussion in France, we had the proposal by the government of using all public data from the social networks to fight against tax evasion or tax fraud. Of course, the objective is quite interesting and quite good, but the means to that end are quite questionable, because when people publish or post something on their social networks, they are not aware that those data could be automatically captured by the government or the public administration to be processed or dealt with. So there's a great discussion about personal data and everything that can be disclosed with those personal data. This brought about a great debate in the country. Then the fight against fake news and online hate. And social networks have started to use increasingly AI to identify more quickly those contents and be able to moderate them or to eliminate and delete those type of contents from the social networks. There are some questions on the table also in this issue because of we need to strike a balance with freedom of speech. So our constitutional advisory council was against these proposals to moderate or eliminate these expressions, and they were censored. So we think that there are certain limits that can be quite complex. A last example as regards security. Of course, there's the temptation of using new technologies and AI to fight. For example, there's going to be a law discussed next week on drones and how drones can capture images every day or daily images, and how those images combined with facial recognition technologies may enable us to identify people on the streets, on the public spaces. Of course, this makes us go perhaps to a model of society that was not the model we chose, and this is similar to what is going on in China nowadays, and this can be an issue. So when the goals may be considered positive to the fight against fraud, evasion, fight against fake news and online hate, or better public space security. The technologies used to pursue those goals may raise ethical issues and questions that are related to our freedoms and constitutional rights. Of course, that's the dilemma here. And Victor, now tell us a little bit about which are the risks you are seeing here. The main risk, at least we observed, is associated with the quality of data, because we cannot train algorithms that would have a good behavior if we start with biases in the data we use to feed or as an input for the algorithm. So that's why we are discussing the ethical framework of AI, how we can have how's the previous building of those data, how we can ensure the data quality. So we are working on, for example, trying to avoid gender biases on algorithm, because as the algorithm learn from what was going on in the past, we can incorporate certain biases, and we need to try to avoid and eliminate, and how we can guarantee that data or the building of the algorithm will be free of biases. And that's for us is one of the main risks. Of course, there are risks associated with privacy, and this has to be mitigated with good practices. And there's another issue that is not a risk, but it's an important issue in the public sector, at least for us in Colombia. Through efficient purchasing, we have adopted the cloud system where the AI components can be hired or purchased. So we have to create a whole framework to tell them how to enter, how to use, how to purchase these technological elements. So risks are associated with data, algorithm biases, privacy. And if we don't have clear acquisition mechanisms, this can also be a risk or an issue in the future. Thank you very much, Victor. To finish this panel, I will ask each of you just to give us some recommendation for those countries that have just started to think about their AI policies, or which have just started to implement their AI policies in order to improve the public sector. Let's start with Paula. Tell us, why do you speak with an Argentine accent?
I was born in France, but my parents are Argentinian. I lived for 20 years in the city of Buenos Aires, and I learned about the region so much, working and learning there. But now I represent the French who live in Latin America, in the French Assembly. So it's a great honor to have you here. Thank you so much. Okay, advice you asked. You know, when you are just starting, first, open data is basics. You need to start with open data policy. Public data and private company data should be open sourced so that everyone can work on these databases and become what we know as the digital commons. These are shared infrastructures. It's key. Also, training, education is essential, but not in very highly specialized cells like laboratory training, but in training all stakeholders in the use of data. Maybe very basic, simple things like using an Excel spreadsheet or using special simple software to build charts. Just starting with the basics to use and move data around. And it doesn't need to be state-of-the-art research in neuronal networks and very complex things like that. No, you should start with the basics to prepare society so that later can harness progress wherever it arises, whether it's Europe or the US. There are many things that are at a experimental stage now. And I know we fantasize and we envision sand castles, but let's start with the basics. Open data, training, cutting across everything, not just having highly specialized individual agents so that they're the only ones to use technology. On the contrary, everyone should be able to use data. Thank you, Paula. Your recommendation is super convenient. Now, let's ask Victor, what recommendations would you give to countries who have not yet started this path? I would start with a strong public policy around AI and adopting digital transformation and all the technologies of the fourth industrial revolution. The policy should be the framework. Secondly, open data. The policy should be also very clear on quality, because there are many data servers, but quality should not be a drawback. And then, third point, I agree with the development of talent, training, education constantly for the effective use of data, for the implementation of algorithms. And I would add a clear policy on public procurement for public policy mechanisms. This should strengthen the public sector. And finally, a clear initiative on how to articulate with the private sector. Within the general framework of digital transformation and AI, how do we involve as much as we can the private sector? And then we have the topic of the next panel, GovTech. We have 2 minutes left. It's wonderful. We managed to stick to within 1 hour. And now you, what do you recommend the countries of the world and Latin American countries to do? I don't want to repeat, because I agree with my colleagues, but 2 ideas to point out. Firstly, building open policies, participatory policies. It's not just a recommendation. It's certainly mandatory for public policy. because technology cuts across everything. It already has an impact of everyone's lives, though we're not aware of it. So we need to make a collective construction that allows us to envision the society of the future. The great challenge in Latin America and worldwide is the difficulty to implement state policies and not government policies. We have the case of Mexico that developed one policy. The most dramatic case was the case of Argentina, where they published a policy and a program, and the day after it was never implemented. So we want to avoid that. We should avoid having policies that are But beyond that, you should look for your particularities, have your own personal development program. It's impossible for us to replicate the German or the Chinese model. It's not the resources, it's not the culture. Need features, our deserts for astronomy data gathering. How can we use that to strengthen? So look for particularities, what makes you unique, and build our populations agree that we use moderator Maria Isabel Mejia for the panel. Entrepreneur environments that are technology-based linked to public administration. GovTech is a strategy that enables specialized capacities in government, better quality, lower cost. GovTech is also a key economic development strategy through redirectioning public spending. How to build and strengthen public-private alliances.
Para profundizar sobre este tema.
Now, to analyze the topic, we welcome Enrique Zapata, Principal Specialist of Digital Innovation in Government Department at CAF. The session is entitled The Promises of GovTech to Set the State in Startup Mode. Thank you, Tatiana. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I'm delighted to be the moderator of the second session. We'll talk about GovTech to enable the state in a startup mode. Each crisis represents a great opportunity. COVID has brought about an urgency, a tangible, short-term urgency. For politicians, for everyone, we need to react and deploy digital tools to bring citizens closer to the government, to reactivate economies and allow governments to apply efficient public policies whenever and wherever they are needed. Such an urgency implies that governments have to do more with less. The challenges we face in digitalization still continue today. It's just that today they are highlighted. Lack of capacity, not inefficient public procurement, lack of innovation are many of the challenges we have to overcome before we reach full digitalization. Within this context, CAF and our allies, for 2 years we've been questioning what can countries, societies, entrepreneurs tackle these old dated challenges in new ways with an innovative mentality. So GovTech is one of the possible solutions to these questions. GovTech is the cooperation between data-intensive startups with governments that use innovation to tackle public issues. But it goes beyond that. CAF has seen that GovTech is a strategy that enables governments to have highly specialized capabilities to resolve public issues with technology. At the same time, it's an economic development policy. It redirects funding to a highly innovative sector which creates highly added value. In times such as this one, GovTech complements the capacities of the public budget by bringing investments. So it creates economic benefits for the private sector, but also benefits for social purposes. So CAF has the GovTech CAF platform where we align products and services to support governments to reach the GovTech policy. So these are transforming 21st century governments. We have a first report in GovTech Indest. We want to set the baseline of our region. We have an investment program. We need support for governments to tackle challenges because of COVID. And today we have a wonderful panel of experts. What's being done in Brazil? What's being done in Italy, in the UK, in Colombia? What's being done? What are the practices they apply and what are their challenges? I'm delighted to introduce you to Leticia Piccolotto. She's the founder and CEO of the Brazil Lab. Supports the GovTech from the private sector. Then we'll listen to Francesca Bria. She is the president of the Italian Innovation National Fund from Italy. And we have a dear friend of GovTech, Warren Smith. He's the director of the Global Digital Market Program of UK Government Digital Service. And Mr. Gaitan, president of Impulsa Colombia. Very clear rule. Your comments, you have 5 minutes for each answer. If you go over that time, I'm sorry, I'll have to interrupt. Mr. Ignacio Gaitan will join us at 11 because he had a prior engagement. So, Leticia, we can start with you. So, according to the last GovTech 2020 index, Brazil is one of the top-ranking countries in GovTech. And this is basically because of the private sector support on GovTech and support of startups, tech startups. How have you promoted it from the private sector? And what's the opportunity of creating additional similar labs?
Boas-vindas também a todos os panelistas.
Thank you all. Thanks to all the members of the panels. We want to thank for the opportunity to be here sharing with you our experience. For me, it's really an honor to speak in such an important session. These are transformation times in Latin America. So I'll tell you about Brazil Lab and what we do here. First, let's set the context and explain the work of Brazil Lab. We are an NGO, a non-for-profit organization arising from the civil society. It's an alliance of 7 companies and some donors, physical individuals who prioritized digital transformation agenda in Brazil. It's the promotion of the GovTech environment. We started working in 2016. We've always believed that private sector public sector innovation would only happen from outside to the inside. It is certainly very difficult. After 5 years of work, we know this is a vision that you struggle for every day. It's very difficult to have the government innovate on its own, and there are very fixed mechanisms within the government that make it difficult to innovate there. So we have the private sector, academia, and other sectors that support and create dialogue and space for transformation within the government. In our work, when we decided to create the GovTech Innovation Hub, the objective was to articulate the private sector with the public sector, and our agenda was not very well promoted throughout Brazil. So we try to raise awareness around society, to rethink the purpose of government. What's the government we're building now? What's the government we need to build based on technological advances and the digital transformation that the whole world is living? Brazil and many other Latin American countries need to connect to the 21st century trends. It has to be in tune with 21st century challenges. Recent studies show that 80% of jobs up to the 21st century are not the ones that we use now. So there are new skills we need to teach in schools for our students. Current generations can later be inserted in the future workforce. So government has a key role to play in that. The challenge is big. Unfortunately, Brazil, like many other Latin American countries, is still facing 18th century challenges like sanitation and infrastructure problems. So the digital transformation is left behind. Unfortunately, the digital transformation is the only path to overcoming 18th century issues and to connect with 21st century opportunities. Countries have been the protagonists and actors of their own development. With this in mind, Brazil Lab established the first GovTech program, acceleration program. In these 5 years, we identified that we need to mobilize the startup ecosystem. In Brazil, this ecosystem is very strong. Current data, we have about 3,000 startups in different areas. With CAF, we support them in 1,500 of these startups can potentially become GovTech. We have great investment of capital on them. The ecosystem is well structured, looking for solutions for complex social problems. The vision is to connect Brazil with the Brazilian political power so as to build a bridge and find solutions for the different problems of Brazil. The first step was a listening effort, listening to the government to identify public sector stakeholders, and then identified the digital challenges for startups from the acceleration sector. There are amongst them lots of agreements with the government and plenty of cooperation between the public and private sector. For the last 5 years, we've grown considerably, but the COVID crisis has stopped growth. But still, we need digital transformation processes in Brazil. We have plenty of challenges about knowledge on how to achieve so. The willingness exists. In the past, digital transformation was just a trend. Now it's a plain reality. Many processes were changed drastically, like implementation in medicine of technology.
Ao longo desses 5 anos, como também dentro do capacitar os gestores públicos cada vez.
But we focus on training and education. In the public sector, we are training public officials to develop the government of the future. Thank you, Leticia. Now we move on to Francesca. You were talking about the work startups are doing to resolve problems, but a fundamental part of that work is done with inputs. The building block for any digital tool is data. I know you're a referent in Europe. Your work in the public sector, in the academia, advising different international agencies. You promote the value of data in innovation and economic and social development. But what role does data play in this ecosystem of innovation? What do you think government should do to promote state sovereignty on data?
Thank you very much for the invitation in this very interesting panel. So let me, before I get to your question, let me just say that I think we have a really strategic challenge at the moment, because during this pandemic, despite only facing the emergency that we have, which is a healthcare emergency, but also an economic and social emergency, I think we should turn this into also an historic opportunity to lay the foundation for a renewal of our governments, of our economies, and our societies. And we can only do that by looking into the future and by facing the big challenge of the green transition on one side and sustainable digitalization on the other side, and create capacity in government, making sure that government can be an engine for innovation, but also in society at large. And I think we have been seeing during this pandemic that we are looking at almost a forced digitization of many aspects of our life. And digital infrastructures, even more than before, have proved to be critical infrastructures on top of which essential services of society run, such as work, such as healthcare, education, and so on. And so I think we are realizing that access to connectivity, to free and public accessible broadband is considered a fundamental right of all citizens. And we are also experiencing, I think, a change in the fact that today, talking about 5G networks, about quantum computing, artificial intelligence, and data have become all of a sudden national and global priorities. Within this context, I think, of course, when we are talking about critical digital infrastructure, I think we should focus on reconquering the data sovereignty of our citizens, of cities and industries, because data is the lifeblood, is the raw material of the modern economy, and an intelligent use of data is of great public interest. We've seen this also during the pandemic, how it is important to have access to healthcare data. All national governments have deployed contact tracing application. We need data to monitor how we are doing with the pandemic, the lockdowns, the spreading of the virus, but also to monitor the environment, the climate emergency, to monitor the economy, to monitor unemployment, and all these different, data really is becoming the critical infrastructure of our society. And of course, data has the potential to create public value. And public value that also, if we unleash it in the right way, it can help us to address the social challenges of our time: climate change, sustainable mobility, affordable housing, healthcare, education, and democratic decision making. And I think regarding data, not only we have to take back democratic control as an infrastructure. For instance, Europe has a very important agenda in the Next Generation EU plan, which is creating a global standard for European cloud computing infrastructure. It's called Gaia X. And our ambition is to create interoperability at the layer of data and to create standards that on one side allow for data to be secure and controlled by citizens. So what we call a data sovereignty, ethics, security, and privacy by design. And at the same time, we want data to become shareable, to share this data amongst companies, amongst public administration and citizens, so that we can create value out of this data, so that we can create data-driven and artificial intelligence-driven services in healthcare, in education, in smart cities, and in our public administration. I've been doing a lot of work on these, as you mentioned in the past, advising the UN Habitat on Smart Cities policy, but also in Barcelona, where we declare data as a public infrastructure that should be co-owned by all citizens. And we also develop decentralized, privacy-enhancing, and rights-preserving data infrastructures to make sure that data serve all of us, that we can really be able to use this data to address the challenges of the future and move away from data oligopolies, data that are owned by 5, 6 big actors, big digital platforms, mainly US and China, and in a kind of democratizing this data and take back the democratic control of data can enable Europe, but also Latin America, to conquer back a bit more of the digital sovereignty that we need in order to compete in the value chain of the future. We need Europe and Latin America to be global actors that compete on its technological innovation, and critical infrastructure such as 5G, artificial intelligence, cloud computing, and data are going to be critical in setting this global economic competition in the future.
Muchas gracias, Francesca. Me quedo con algo esencial.
Thank you very much, Francesca. I just take this idea of democratizing data for the future of our life. Data is the input, then there's something fundamental, which is the mechanism by which public policies come true, which is the public purchase processes. Warren Buffett has been really pioneer on this as regards public purchase and digitalization. What's the strategic vision in the UK as part of the Boss Tech digitization system, and what you're doing in Latin America to promote this? Thank you very much. Buenos días, Enrique.
So in terms of public procurement, generally in the UK, the national level, this is the responsibility of the government commercial function and the Crown Commercial Service. And the UK Government Digital Service, or GDS as I refer to it for short now, works very closely with both these organisations and many others. And we're all part of the Cabinet Office, which ensures that the government runs effectively from the center. So our role as GDS is to help government work better for everyone by leading the digital transformation of government. We help people interact with the government, and we also support the government to operate more efficiently and effectively. So in terms of digital data and technology and how this interfaces with public procurement, this is covered by a number of important and interrelated areas throughout the end-to-end public spending lifecycle. So first of all, there are the standards that GDS use to assure how central government departments plan their spending and also deliver their services. So here we use the Technology Code of Practice and the Service Standard, which are really the cornerstones of our role as the digital data and technology function of the UK government. Secondly, and an area very close to my heart, is the digital marketplace, which is a key route to the GovTech market for the UK public sector. And in fact, on Friday, just 2 days' time, the digital marketplace will turn 6 years young. So keep your eyes peeled on social media for our birthday celebrations. The digital marketplace helps to lower barriers to entry for a broader range of more diverse providers of digital data and technology services. So, for example, digital marketplace spend with SMEs in the last 12 months is 23% higher than the previous year. So we're helping SMEs gain access to a growing market share. Third, there's the GDS GovTech Catalyst, which focuses much more on pre-commercial procurement with a 20 million research and development fund as a way of easily gaining access to the entrepreneurial market, which we've already heard today, to help solve public sector challenges using innovative technologies. And finally, there's the Crown Commercial Services Buying Digital Community. This is a really important piece of work that's led by my excellent colleague, Emilia Cedeno, who's an Ecuadorian national and a passionate reformer when it comes to enhancing digital skills across the UK's public sector in terms of procurement and commercial. So the digital buying community regularly brings together hundreds of public sector buyers to celebrate their profession, share experiences and share better practices. So really it's the combination of these approaches that collectively are informing our discussions with other governments around the world who are interested in learning from our experience, and we're as interested in their experience as well in terms of digital government and associated procurement reforms. So in terms of specifically Latin America, GDS is working with Colombia and Mexico. In Colombia, in collaboration and with thanks to the British Embassy Bogota, our key partners are the Ministry of Information and Communication Technology, or MINTIC, and it's the department in charge for pushing the digital agenda in Colombia. So the work that we've been working on there is really to support the provision of technical advice on the single government platform, gov.co. We've been developing standards and assurance initially on digital spend, but now also focus on developing and iterating MINTIC's newly launched design standards, and also providing advice and support on creating new user research. In Mexico, and also in collaboration with thanks to the British Embassy Mexico City, we're looking at national and the state and local level. So nationally, we're working with Hacienda and also the National Anti-Corruption System Secretariat, or CESNA for short. And also we're starting more recently to look at areas around beneficial ownership transparency as well. So our work in Mexico is all very fascinating and exciting. We're extremely pleased to be working with a broad range of stakeholders, and I just want to focus on one particular, the work with Cesna and Rika. I know it's an area close to your heart, and that's on the National Digital Platform, which is described by the OECD as a pillar of the country's general law and national anti-corruption system. And so this project is working with 3 states as pilots, Chihuahua, Jalisco, and Oaxaca, to connect their data on public officials covering 2 of the systems within that national digital platform. First on System 2, public officials involved in procurement, and System 3 on sanctioned public officials and individuals. So phase 1 is complete, and phase 2 has just started. So we continue to work with CESNA over the coming months and into 2021, and this is really laying the foundations for being able to scale the work to all 32 states within Mexico, and to give Mexico a truly national view on an ability to mitigate corruption risks and to implement the obligations of the law. So just in closing, I'd just like to summarize by saying that it's really exciting opportunities in Latin America to support the GovTech ecosystem, particularly relating to open data, public procurement, and for sure has joined up strategy to make public policy a reality. So thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, Warren. En definitiva.
Thank you very much, Wayne. UK has been a key partner of many governments in Latin America for the development of digital agenda in the region. Leticia started talking about acceleration, how to provide support from the private sector to developments in the public sector. Francesca talked about data, the essential ecosystem required for this project. Warren talked about procurement and how these can materialize into public policies. And then we are missing one key ingredient that many times is left aside in Latin America, which is investment. Investment as a mechanism to develop, not to do something new, but just to develop new ways of approaching or meeting the challenges that we have been facing over the last decades. Francesca, once again, so you are currently the president of Italy Renovation Fund, and you provide support to this type of strategic technological initiatives. Two questions for you. What is the investment potential in optech issues in Italy and Europe? What would you recommend for Latin America so governments would start thinking in these type of funds to fund these projects?
As you said, the partnership between governments and the public sector ministries, but also development economic development institutions and economic development agencies, and the private sector, which involves startups, but also big companies and private investors. I think we need a systemic policies that put forward also new instruments in order to create these kind of synergies and to grow an ecosystem of startups and scale-ups and real innovative capacity that can generate economic activities, but that can also scale. And that's why Italy has created a new instrument, which is the Italian Innovation Fund, which has over 1 billion to invest in the whole cycle of the innovative SMEs, from their birth to their acceleration, to scale them up, and also investing in creating next generation accelerators, business accelerator in key and strategic sectors of the Italian economy and hubs of technology transfer. But also to strengthen the link between science and so our advanced centers for scientific and technological development and industry, because this link between science and industry is at the very root of, is the engine of innovation. And let me say that again, I think during this pandemic, it has been quite clear how important is this coordinated action between the public sector and the private sectors and private investors, and how, you can, if you invest in equity, for instance, of startups, you can then leverage more investment from the private sector, and then you can really let's say, improve the quality and the innovativeness of public investment with the direction of growth in strategic sectors of the economy. And we saw that the importance also of startups in this complicated economic recovery phase is actually critical, from biomedical research against the COVID to medical devices to platform from online education, e-commerce, food delivery, contract tracing application. In this pandemic, these all services have been provided by SMEs and startups and by innovative startups. And so we actually discovered a significant interest from investors and institutions in startups in this moment of economic slowdown, which is, I think, significant of a specific resilience of this ecosystem in general. And I think in Europe, obviously, the situation is evolving strongly, also due to our awareness of the importance of venture capital as a catalyst for growth and the thriving startup ecosystem. So we have an ambition to regain some global leadership in digital innovation and to close the gap with Silicon Valley and other innovative regions of the world, which obviously are much more advanced when it comes to the creation of unicorns or the number of exits from startups and the kind of general growth of the innovative ecosystem. For me, if I would have to give an advice on why it is important to have systemic policies, is that, again, this coordinated action, this leverage, this partnership between public sector and private sector, I think is key. And also, it is important to, I think, to grow the market. So, for instance, the innovation fund act as a private operator in the market. We follow a market logic. We attract new teams of investors, new capacity to build new funds, also first-time teams and first-time funds. And at the same time, we're working together with the research centers, with universities to really boost the talent, the capacity, the human capital to invest more in science, in research and in education, so that you grow the capacity of the innovation system and the scientific system in the country to then, produce the kind of business innovation that it's needed to move to a different stage. So I think it's really a systemic strategy, and we should not also underestimate the importance of the role of big industries and big companies to grow the startups. So we are, for instance, creating a corporate venture capital fund as well, to make sure that big companies, that can be public companies or private companies, invest more in startups, but also buy the innovation that comes from our advanced research centers and our startups as an exit strategy as well. So we make sure that we can grow also this innovative capacity and to have made in Europe innovation, so that, yes, our startup can compete globally, but we give them all the tools, the access to the financial capital and resources to also stay in Europe and grow in the strategic value chains of the future, which at the end are going to be about, as I said before, digitization and also, for instance, hydrogen, the green transition, electric batteries, all the things, all the sectors that are strategic to compete in the future. So the ambition here is to have innovation that's made in Europe, that can grow and scale, and that it will enhance the entire innovative capacity of a nation and of Europe in general.
Muchas gracias, Francesca. Definitivamente.
Thank you very much, Francesca. Your vision from Europe is very interesting, and I keep this idea that there's interest from the investment to enter into this sector. And the question for Leticia now is, what about the appetite for investment in GovTech in Brazil or in Latin America? What can you say to risk investors that are thinking about this but are not yet decided to do it? That's the most important issue we are prioritizing in Brazil. We have a communication front that goes to different sectors in order to discuss different barriers to the progress of GovTech. And investment is one of the main barriers. This was very clear in the two studies produced by CAF and the GovTech ranking. The Brazilian government has a clear strategy to include startups or financial inclusion, and in the study we produced by mapping the GovTech, it was clear that the issue of funding is a barrier. 90% of Brazilian GovTech now use their own resources to start operating, and they are kind of shy resources because it's just 100 to 200,000 reals. It's $20,000. It's a very small or shy investment. And so this is a challenge for GovTechs, because we know that in order to have a selling strategy with the government, it takes 5 months more than direct sell to companies. So this strategy takes 5 times more. And so companies need to have a cash flow or a capital enough to be able to sell to the government. And it's a great challenge. It's a very important barrier in Brazil, because we've seen the movement of social impact funds, and they have grown a lot in Brazil, and they have tried to understand how these funds can invest in GovTechs. As I said at the beginning, we cannot talk about impact or social transformation in Brazil if we not include the government. 40% of the GDP of Brazil comes from the same Brazilian government. So we do need to include the government in this equation so that we can make progress in this issue. Another indicator is that 70% of schools in Brazil are public schools. And so if we can think about one impact, it's mobilizing the tech ecosystem to have an impact on education in Brazil. And for that, we need to start discussing with the government. And that now we are facing the challenge of understanding how investment works from the public environment. Sometimes we have issues of compliance, etc. So we need to discuss on all those issues to be able to create new mechanisms or compliance instruments, bringing officials or former officials to the negotiation table. Our recommendation we give to our the people discussing with us is to include former public servants of officials in those groups to be able to discuss and understand the different mechanisms and processes in order to sell or the public sector or to be part of the public sector procurement process. With the pandemic, many sectors in Brazil, as Francesca already said, provided services to the government and were very key players as regards the provision of technological solutions to fight against COVID in education, in healthcare, etc. So startup really had a good push in Brazil, and we have to start up in the Brazil Lab portfolio that received structured funds, and this has been a milestone for investment of over 8 million reals. This is a real hallmark for the whole investment system, but the government still has to include this discussion in research and development programs, and also has to include investment in when structuring mechanisms for GovTechs so that their solutions can be provided to the government.
The GovTech sector contribution of the private sector is important for startups too. Investment is one of the channels we need, and procurement is another one. Worrying in this sense, in the UK, you recently published digital public procurement guidelines. What's that guideline? What's the application for it?
Thank you, Enrique, and thanks also for recognising the importance of the work. I think through the digital buying guide, we're aiming to present modern approaches. We've heard the need to bring government into the 21st century, and public procurement is certainly within that area. So we want to ensure that public procurement is fair, open, transparent, effective, but also multidisciplinary and also focused on meeting user needs. So that's a really important kind of distinction between the traditional approaches. And I think it's imperative that public procurement is used as a catalyst to achieve successfully the Sustainable Development Goals. And we've got the next decades to help focus our minds on that. So if we seize this opportunity, I genuinely believe public procurement can help to reduce the inequalities in society and also to help stimulate local economies. Public procurement can also help to increase the participation of underrepresented groups within these government suppliers, such as women-owned GovTech SMEs. Public procurement can also help to address people's raised expectations for simpler, clearer, and more digital public services. And it can also help to build trust between governments or rebuild trust between governments and their communities. And also it can really help to increase transparency and access to information. So I often refer to the kind of collection of these characteristics as buying digitally with social purpose. And I think it's through working collaboratively to make procurement open that we can really help to make government better. And so just a little bit about the digital buying guide. It's practical step-by-step guidance. It's available in Spanish, and it also provides a growing collection of illustrative case studies from governments around the world, which includes some excellent case studies from Colombia, the Dominican Republic, Ecuador, and Mexico and Latin America. So it was sponsored by the UK's Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office, the OECD's Working Party of Senior Digital Government Officials, and also the United Nations International Telecommunication Union, and it's United for Smart, Sustainable Cities. And I think the key word there is sustainable. So with the beta product, which was launched a couple of weeks ago, evolved from the ICT Commissioning Playbook Alpha that we launched towards the end of 2018, also with the help of OECD and other partners as well. And so since the beginning of 2020, we began to iterate the Alpha. A multidisciplinary team drew inspiration from our own products and tooling, such as the gov.uk design system, as well as the National Health Service digital design system, and other design styles used by multilateral and non-government organisations that work on international development. So we've been speaking to lots of users and stakeholders in national and local governments around the world. Mostly was face-to-face, but when COVID-19 began to escalate internationally, we switched very quickly to remote delivery. So the intention for the digital buying guide is that it can be for anybody who buys for the public sector in their country, whether that's local, regional, or national government organisations. And it aligns with the UN Sustainable Development Goals, as well as standards and guidelines on corruption prevention and gender equality in public procurement. We've started by focusing on digital and technology products and services, but the information is intended to be internationally relevant and not specific to any particular regulatory environment. So in terms of actions that could be taken without the need for regulatory or technological adjustments to systems, I think the best areas to focus on is building digital capability across functional areas like procurement. And so this means helping digital delivery teams and commercial practitioners to work together collaboratively in the open and as multidisciplinary teams, focus on meeting their users' needs. And I particularly like the procurement-related recommendations in the, I will say, excellent GovTech Index 2020 report that CAF and Oxford Insights launched in June, which nicely aligns with the digital buying guide. So I just want to state some of the things in there that I think are particularly poignant. So it states avoiding being too prescriptive about the services sought in the tendering process. A problem-first approach will allow smaller startups to pitch innovative solutions. It also says to break up large contracts into smaller ones or consider allowing multiple companies to put together a bid, as GovTech startups may struggle to compete with larger technology firms. And also to establish a digital training academy for training public servants in digital skills. So I'd just like to draw out two particular digital skills. There are many others, but two in particular. I think first is user-centered design, which is really about the why and the what, to understand the challenges to overcome and solving the problems our users face in dealing with government. And then the second is agile delivery, which is about the how and the when. So when coupled with user-centered design, I think this can be very impactful in terms of delivery of social value. And I'd just like to end my response by saying that I truly believe that it's the efforts like this which can be done by willing volunteers without the need for regulatory or technological adjustments, and that being multidisciplinary, agile, empowered teams and trusted teams who are collaborative coalition builders, advocating for systemic change through communities of practice. So, thank you very much.
Perfecto. Muchas gracias, Warren.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Warren. Now let's see the results of the survey we put up. And after we see the results, to bring us to the closing of the session, I will ask a general question to Warren, Leticia, and Francesca. I will give you a minute each to tell us about the challenges in the region, just to wrap up with this wonderful session. So can we see the results of the survey, of the poll? Voting is closed. The viewers tell us, what is the key challenge in empowering the GovTech ecosystem in your country? It's evenly divided in four. 20% improving ecosystems. 29% is improving regulatory frameworks. 27% training public officers. And 24% investment. Now, Warren, what's the key challenge in GovTech for the future?
1 minute. There's a challenge. So I think we've already heard it throughout today. I think it's a multi-stakeholder, multi-sector, multidisciplinary approach. I think everybody has a role to play in contributing to this. I don't think anything can really exist in a vacuum anymore, and certainly never should have done, and certainly shouldn't be doing that so today. So I think collaboration is at the heart of that. And I think within government, as national, regional, provincial, local, municipal, and rural governments all have a role to play in helping to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals and being sure that the private sector are a really key part of that as well. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Francesca.
Thank you so much, Francesca.
Is first of all to believe that government is an engine of innovation. And I think we need to realize that accelerating digitization and accelerating innovation needs to be done, but it's not enough. We also need to give it a direction. And the direction is that we need to put technology at the service of people. We need to make sure that technology enable us to solve the big social and environmental challenges of our times. First of all, climate change and the climate emergency, the green and ecological transition, but also really create a better life for citizens while preserving our fundamental rights. So I think we need a model of innovation where the partnership between the public and the private will be a synergic partnership will be absolutely critical. And let me mention also that we do need to invest much more in human capital, in science, in technology, and in education. Create the capabilities inside governments, but also in society to be actively shaping our future. And to do that, we also need smart bureaucracy. We need to make the government more open, more collaborative, more agile, more innovative. We need to hire young people, young talented people, make the public sector sexy. We need young people that want to change the world for the better, also wanting to join government and public organizations to shape the future. So we need to make this public sector attractive again. And one way to do it is also, to collaborate with citizens, with startups, with the innovative companies that we have, and unleash the talent and the capacity that we have in society. We have big challenges ahead.
Muchas gracias, Francesca. Leticia, en un minuto, el principal desafío.
Thank you, Francesca. Leticia, 1 minute. We need to change our mindset, and that mindset change has to take place within governments, in private sectors, public sectors, as Francesca was saying. The state has to be seen as a strategic player in this process. The future being built by them, by the public sector, and it has to be citizen-centered. Based on the Brazilian experience in Brazil Lab, we work plenty with startups, getting the commitment of the entire society. this changing of the mindset is possible. It has to be a strong change in the mindset of the public sector. Now I give the floor to Ignacio Gaitan. Ignacio, we talk about the mechanisms of digitalization, the importance of data and investment. To close, can you tell us what Colombia is doing and what President Duque and Carranza said? You are the top third country on digital government according to OECD. Thank you. Thanks to all my colleagues in the conversation. I met you all in previous meetings. Now, my comment. A big effort in public policies. About an hour ago, I was on a radio interview, and we said we need to set the example, creating a framework on public policy. Big news, Enrique. We are in the last stages of the debate on an entrepreneurship bill. Entrepreneurship worldwide is key, and now we are preparing a robust bill that talks about public procurement, financing, and so many other things that pertain to that. Another point is, from now to the future, how do we generate good GovTech policies? With the support of CAF, we were able to put together an ambitious program, 177 projects on digital government. We are mapping since September all initiatives. And I'm proud to say that we're working on a second phase to strengthen innovative public procurement. Our public procurement system is a market that manages 100 billion pesos, and we need to improve and bring innovation to that, as Warren was saying. And by generating a robust program, with President Duque, we created My Lab, a public innovation laboratory that is a training field for innovation. With the mining industry, we want to escalate clean energy in departments of low power accessibility, of renewable energies. We have 5 entrepreneurs, and we have an award for the top 5 will help them improve their business. Social prosperity is an area where we use blockchain. Another government group provides opportunities on fintechs to provide transportation to people who need monetizable resources. And within BIMA, the healthcare agency, we have digital records applying artificial intelligence. These are all facts. It's not plans, it's facts. And Enrique, thanks for the introduction. I'm very happy here today. The fact that in the Colombian development plan, the key word is entrepreneurship, that's the big news. I was talking to an Israeli investment fund. We'll open an innovation office in Israel next month. And so there's plenty of examples. It's an entrepreneurship development innovation model that we copied from France, the S model, which we are also applying. So creating an innovative and entrepreneurship environment is key. We have physical fields where we have startups, government agencies, IT companies, investment funds, universities, all at the same park, and we're scattering that throughout the country. We want an entrepreneur nation for the benefit of the public and the private sectors. We have private investments with SoftBank and public agencies investing in things that Colombia did not have available at the local market. If we don't do it, someone else will do it. So we better start working on it. We have plenty of good news. So much is being done. It's huge effort that is generating synergy. If government generates technology, everyone will follow suit. Thank you so much. Thank you, Francesca, Leticia, Warren, Ignacio. You said entrepreneurship and entrepreneur state. CAF supports that and will continue to work with the governments of the region in this regard. Thank you. Thank you so much, Enrique Zapata, Francesca Bria, Ignacio Gaitan, Leticia Piccolotto, and Warren Smith for joining us on the second session.
En nombre de CAF,
on behalf of CAF, the Development Bank of Latin America, and the Presidency of Colombia, thank you so much for joining us today in this broadcast. The session will be available in our YouTube channel at CAF whenever you want to see it. Thank you to our media partners, Al Tiempo, NTN 24, and the news agency Europa Press. Thank you for joining us from your computers or cell phones. Thank you so much for your support in this session. Good afternoon, everyone.